Okie doke, so for this first pet spotlight video, I'll be talking about the Wolvar pup. The very first pet I leveled up specifically for PvP. I just happened to have one by accident, and I saw someone else using it when I went in, like one of my first PvP matches. I thought he was pretty neat with his snap trap ability. Little did I know, he is still kind of really neat with the snap trap ability. Snap trap is a unique skill, only Wolvar pup actually has it. And there's only like a handful of other pets that actually have trap abilities. Let's see, I think besides little Ragnaros, no one else really has this specific kind of trap. Snap trap is a unique skill in that it goes off when your opponent attacks, just randomly though. And it stuns him for 1 round and does some damage. Some nice damage, I should say. But the cool thing about snap trap is that when it goes off, it will interrupt him for that turn, plus they stay stunned for the next turn. So it basically gives you a free turn of doing whatever you want. And any ability that gives you like an extra turn of attacking with impunity is great. So Snap Trap is really good for that one ability alone. The Curious Wolvar pup, you can only get it during Children's Week, so it is kind of a pain in the ass to get, and Children's Week like just passed too. I think I remember I put out a Twitter message like, hey, it's Children's Week, make sure you get the only good pet that you can get from Children's Week, which is the Curious Wolvar pup. I have him named Critter Killer because in addition to being a pretty solid PvP pet with Snap Trap, he also has really good abilities for killing critters in the form of Bite and Maul. Maul is another really good ability. Like on its own, Maul, there is no pet that has Maul that can also put a bleed on the target, so they're super reliant on like a team that has some kind of bleed, that way they can use Maul. And the reason there's no pet that has Maul and a bleed is because Maul hits super hard. Like by itself, it hits for 517 damage. The average auto attack hits for about, oh, that's a pretty high hitting auto attack. Well, Wolvar pup is a power type, so of course he's going to hit harder than normal pets. The average attack hits for about 300 damage, and Maul hits for 517 baseline, which is about 200 more than the average auto attack. Well, not auto attack, but average basic attack. And if they're bleeding, he does an additional like 350 damage. So he hits about 3 times harder than a normal attack if they're bleeding, for about 900 damage, give or take, which is really, really good. Like, let's see, any other abilities that hit really hard that do about 900 damage? Let's look at the other bleed attack. Oops, I have it set on similar. Let me go to one of my crabs. Let's see, I think Internet Explorer here. Yes, he has Blood in the Water. You probably can't see it down here. Blood in the Water hits for 754, which is just a little bit less than a Maul, and it's basically like the same condition in that they have to be bleeding for it to like guaranteed to hit, otherwise there's a 50% chance to hit. Maul does hit a little bit harder, and Internet Explorer is probably like the hardest hitting pet that can use Blood in the Water, with a really high attack value of 357. So for Maul to hit harder than Blood in the Water is saying something, because Blood in the Water hits really hard. So Maul, really nice ability, but in PvP, you have the option of going either Maul or Whirlwind. Whirlwind, it used to be a really lackluster AoE. I mean, I still took it sometimes, but I mean, Maul was really the better choice, because even if they're not bleeding, it still hits really hard. Not really hard enough to justify a 3-round cooldown, but hard enough where you'd still use it over the lackluster Whirlwind. Whirlwind was recently buffed in Warlords of Draenor to the, I would like to call the Avalanche type thing, because back before Warlords of Draenor, I don't know how to spell Avalanche. Here it is, Avalanche. This ability by the Arctic Brew Pup, where it calls down avalanche on the enemies, dealing 40 elemental damage split evenly amongst them. Before Warlords of Draenor, Avalanche was like the only AoE ability that did the, just a crap ton of damage, but it split it between your opponent's pets. Besides Avalanche, all the other AoEs were all kind of bad. Now, in Warlords of Draenor, they figured out, the Avalanche model is really good, so let's give that to a whole bunch of other AoEs. So, Wolvar Pup got a nice buff with the Whirlwind doing split damage now. So if your opponent only has 1 pet out, it just does like 570 damage, which is Again, a lot. That's almost double a basic attack. So, yeah, let's see. We have Whirlwind, and then you'll probably see these guys a lot. The Mechanical Dragonlings. Oh, I got one right here. Yeah, this is another one that got a nice buff in Warlords of Draenor. Before, its Thunderbolt ability was kind of bad, just like Whirlwind, because I think it was a little bit worse than Whirlwind. And now it's really good with that split damage. It does 592 damage split evenly amongst your opponent's team, which is really nice, just like Whirlwind. And then they even did the same thing to Dreadful Breath, which is why Dreadful Breath teams are pretty good right now, because Dreadful Breath used to be bad too, and now it's really good since it does split damage instead of, you know, just like straight up damage. Kind of like the whole reason Weebomination's really good right now. Let's see, where's Weebomination? My Pudge. Yeah, he has his Cleave ability, which splits the damage evenly amongst your opponent's pets. So, that's neat, I guess. Yeah, anyways, he's got Whirlwind, so he fits in perfectly fine with the AoE team. He's got Maul, so he fits in really well with Bleed teams. He's got Snap Trap, so Snap Trap by itself makes him a good pet, but he also has, you know, 2 different basic attacks to choose from. I usually go with Bite, because of the 2, Punch, I mean, they both hit exactly the same, so it's really just what kind of damage you want to do. With Punch, you rarely run into dragons in PvP, but you do run into a lot of beast types. And with Bite, you do run into more critters than flying types in PvP. So if I'm PvPing with him, I take Bite over Punch like 9 times out of 10. And yeah, I usually just go with this. But he's also really good in PvE situations because he's like a really good counter to whatchamacallit, the critter types, because he's a humanoid, which means he takes, you know, 50% less damage from, is it 50% less damage? I don't know, it's not showing me values. I think it is. You take less damage from critter type abilities, plus you have 2 really hard hitting beast type attacks. So I have him named Critter Killer just because I use him a ton in like teams for, here, let me show you the teams that he's in. Let's go up to Critter Killer. List all 8 teams. He's in a couple of Bleed teams. He's in the one I have up right here, the AoE team, another Bleed team, another Bleed team. This one he uses his AoE, and this one he uses his AoE, and then I have him in a daily thing because I guess I'm going against critters because he's really good at taking out critters, because if you substitute Snap Trap for Frenzy Brew, it's a 25% damage buff for 3 turns. It also does a little bit of damage, so it's really nice to like just one-shotting critters with Maul if you use a Frenzy Brew first, because Maul just hits really hard, and then Bite. It's just really good for taking out critters fast. I mean, if you really want to take out critters without ever worrying about dying, you probably want to go with an Anubish Idol. But if you want to take him out quickly, I like to go with Critter Killer because he hits harder, because he's a power type, and he just hits really hard against critters because of his Maul and Bite. So, that's him for, he's like one of the few pets that is good in PvP, and also has a really good skill set for PvE. So I use him a lot for PvP. He's also really good in PvE, and he's like one of the first pets I leveled up specifically for PvP. I think he was like my 4th level 25 pet total. So, the Curious Wolvar pet. It's a really nice pet.